All right, welcome to video lecture 5. We're gonna just go over homework 3 because we didn't have time to do that. We've had our hands full with Jonah, but it has been a fun time, at least for me. All right, so I want to go over the translation. So I just typed it up real quick before I pushed record just to save us some time. And so this is review of some of the things we had been talking about at the very beginning of this semester. So you should be able to recognize the Vayomer for then he said or and he said. Just a reminder, when you have then, so, and, all of those are typically represented by the Vav. So you have the Vayektol Vayomer, and he said. Then you have Yakal is the verb to be able or to prevail. And being a one yod, this is a weird one yod verb, but it changes every time. I guess it's not too weird. The yod drops out essentially no matter what. And so you have the ukal, or if it was 2, this is 1 CS. If it was 2 MS, it would be tukal. If it was tukali, you would have 2 FS, etc. Ukal. So this is how you typically spell this. So ukal, I am able, and then notice that this is the complementary infinitive. Remember, this is a good verb to learn about infinitives because it basically will contrast, or I guess complement itself is the word I'm looking for, with an infinitive. I am able what? I am able to do something. So let's see if my pen works this time around. Yay! So it does. So notice it needs an infinitive to complete the thought. So latet is basically from natan, to give, but it looks really weird. So you kind of have to just know this form. Latet, to give. So ukal, latet. And then depending on if you're talking to MS or MS on the right side or feminine singular on the left side, laka or lach. So I'm able to give to you hakos, the cup. I am able to give you the cup. And then you don't really have punctuation in Hebrew per se, so you have just another vayomer. So then he said, vayomer, yeshli, I have kos. Notice I don't have the cup. So if you put hakos, it's not terrible, but when you have indefinite, you don't put the article usually. So yeshli kos velechem. So I have a cup and bread. And then he went out, and that's vayetse. So this is a one yod verb again, and the yod actually drops out. So you would have had to look this up on your forms, but the yod of the vayektol is still there. So this is a vayektol 3ms. That's why a yod is still there, even though in the imperfect it dropped out. So the yod there is of the vayektol, not the root, even though it does come from yatsa as well, to go out. So this is how it should look. And so on the assignments, I probably won't make too many comments when I'm grading homework 3. I'll probably just refer you to this video so that you can know what it would look like. And you know, there are different ways that you could say things, I'm sure. You could use davar here for say instead of vayomer, but vayomer is going to be the more common of options. All right, let's talk parsing now. So parsing, let's just fly through these and make sure you're correct, because again, these will show up on quizzes and exams. So right away with this one, we're on number 1 on the left here. So we need to ask, is it perfect or imperfect? There's no ending. And so you have the prefix beginning. So that means you go by color system. So you go colors and you have purple, red, green. That's going to be PL. PL, and then it's imperfect because there's no Vav, and then it's going to be 2MS or 3FS. And that's going to be from Shachar. And there you have it. PL imperfect, 2MS, 3FS from Shachar. Now, on the other side here, so again, the key to that one is you just would have to recognize the fact that it has a prefix and no suffix, okay? All right, so number 2 then on the bottom there. So we do see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters. there is here a prefix and a suffix. So the yod prefix and the shurik suffix. So that again is a sign of the imperfect. Now, if we go by colors, we are going to be distraught and we are going to get it wrong. So this is where you see a weird O class vowel. And remember, if the yod is and by the way, this can't be a participle, even though it may at first seem like a participle. The reason it can't be a participle is because of the shurik ending, the u ending. What kind of endings do nouns, I just gave it away. How dare I? I should just redo this whole video. But yes, the participles take noun endings. Those are the eem on the top right of the screen here. It takes the eem endings. It takes the ot endings. It takes the ah endings, or no ending if it's masculine singular. But the u is a verbal ending. So that means it has to be a imperfect here. And so we are then trying to figure out why there's that O class there, and that's the one yod verb pattern. So if you see the first letter of the root as a holem vav, you know that that's going to be hifil. So hifil, imperfect, 3MP because of the shurik at the end, and then notice that it's from a one yod verb, yatsa. All right, hifil imperfect, 3MP from Yatsa. All right, here on this one, tatzmiach. All right, I see 5 letters again. I see a hirik yod in the middle. That's gonna be an indication of a hifil. There's no suffix either, so you're dealing with the imperfect, and so you can just go color system. Color system, green or red, purple, green is going to be hifil anyway, but you have the hirik yod in the middle, which is telling you the patak underneath the prefix. So it's pretty standard. And then you go samach. All right. And then next one, dibarta. Dibarta. Well, no prefix, and I see a suffix, the ta. That's telling me that it's a 2ms. So I know that. And then, so if it's a perfect, which it looks like, there's no vav. So the 2ms ending is telling me perfect. Look at that. I already got half of it right. And then you go by sound. So di bar, not da bar, but di bar. The hirik underneath the first letter is an indicative of a PL. Maybe you're thinking nifal, but remember a nifal needs to have a noon prefix. It needs to be ni specifically, not just I underneath the first letter. So, and the other thing is 99% of the davars are PLs. And you also have the dagation, the second root letter, which is an indication of the PL. Lots of indications of the PL. All right, now these special ones that I've marked, let's do them both at the same time here. And really, it's just a pattern that you're going to have to know with regard to it looks like a hifil, and it kind of sounds like one too, okay? So it looks like a hifil, it sounds like a hifil. The big exception is that you're never going to have a hirik yod. So no hirik yod is present. And this little dagesh in the first root letter is telling you it's a nifal triangle. So in context as well, nifals are usually passive instead of causative active. So nifal is usually he was beaten instead of he caused somebody to be beaten. And so that's in context, it's going to be pretty easy what it means. But this is just something to know, is that the nifal in the imperative and in the infinitive construct are going to have the hey prefix. Infinitive construct. So that means, and if it's an imperative, it's going to be 2ms because there's no ending. And then, whoops, that is terrible. But gamal and shamad. Okay, so you're going to have to be watching for those, the hey prefix and the nifal triangle with regard to that. So that's, and am I going to try to trick you on the exam like that? Well, I might throw one of these on there, but that's just to keep you honest. Normally, it's going to be pretty easy to tell whether it's a hifil or a nifal in context, obviously, because if you're reading the sentence, it's going to be nonsense in many ways. All right, then the next one here, our first vayiktol. Notice the vav at the beginning, so we have to account for that. No ending, no suffix, so we do have a vayiktol. And the reason I know that this also is a nifal is because of the color system. You can use the color system for the imperfect and the vayiktol. And so it is green, red, green, and that's going to be nifal from Malay. All right, now here we have an interesting, lots of letters here on this one. So we have a vav at the beginning, so that means it's vayiktol or vukatal, unless there is, well, I'm not going to give you a vayiktol on the exam where there's a vav on an imperfect or something like that. That's just cheating. I probably wouldn't do that to you. But in, like we saw in Jonah or in Genesis, there are occurrences where that's helpful in context to discern that difference. All right, so here we can go through the color system because of the prefix and a suffix, but this is the 2fs suffix or 3fs. So going through the color system is purple, red, green. So what is that? That's a PL. Now the reason there's no dagesh in the second root letter, why is that? Because it's a guttural. So gutturals reject the dagesh. So if this is a imperfect, this is going to be a vayiktol. And the reason that this vav doesn't have a patak underneath it is because of the way that the shava works, and the lengthening. So this is still vayiktol. Vayiktol PL 2FP. I think I said 2FS before, but 2FP or 3FP is what it is. And then from Mahar. All right. So PL vayiktol 2. All right. So kum, a jelly donut. So the thing about jelly donuts is the form that you memorize is the infinitive construct of the call or the imperative. And so I'm going way out of order. I apologize for that. But it's either a 2ms imperative or an infinitive construct, and then obviously it's just from kum, and you put all three letters because every Hebrew verb has three letters, even though when this shows up in the call, it's going to show up as kam in the participle or the call perfect. All right, moving on. So we looked at the jelly donuts. Now we're going to see another jelly donut here. We see the T ending. That tells us 1CS. That also tells us it's perfect, except it's got a vav, so it's going to be vukatal. So we go by sound, but this is a little odd because it's a jelly donut. Okay, so now we have to play a little Sherlock's because it doesn't really sound perfect. It doesn't sound like a feel, and so ha ki moti. That doesn't sound like anything we would recognize. So what in the world? Well, you have to account for the hey at the beginning. And so it's either going to be a hifil or a hofal. And like I said, I'm basically drilling hifils into you. Once you know the hifil, the hofal is just way easier to recognize. And there's 1% that show up. So you're good basically just knowing the hifil really well. So this is going to be a hifil because of that hey, and because in the jelly donuts, the hirik yod comes in instead of the the shurik. So we have a hifil, vukatal, and then 1CS from kum. Okay. All right, I am going to do something else here because my hands getting tired from writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write what's going on here. So that way it's easier to read and we're all happier. Okay, so going through the process here. Again, we note no ending, so nothing at the ending, and we recognize the vav and the prefix. That means we're dealing with a vayiktol. We go through the color system. So red, purple, green. That is a hif fill. And then it's a vayiktol, and it's a 2ms, 3fs. This is much better. And then gadal is the root. Look at that. I saved my hand much better. Okay, so it's just an awkward position to write. Allow me to complain to you. I don't even know if any of you watch these videos, but you should, because technically they're required, and that's always good. But who knows? Who knows? I don't even, well, I should probably take a poll sometime and say, who watches these outside video lectures? I'm assuming that they're important, but that's just my thought. Okay, so now we're dealing with lu, kaha. Okay, so no prefix. You don't see a yod, tav, aleph there, but you do see a comet's hey. So that's a 3fs feminine ending. So we go by sound, lu, kaha. So that's the pual ending. And the kibbutz is the pual that comes under the first letter. So pual, it's just going to be a perfect 3fs, and then it's going to come from la kach. And so that's helpful. All right, so we go through this. The same process actually applies to this one. There's no prefix, but there is a vav. And so you go by sound, gilcha, gilcha. And what we see here is it sounds like a PL. Whoops. Sounds like a PL. It is also a vukatal. And 3fs, the comet's hey, just like the previous one. That's what's going on there. And it comes from galach. All right, we already did hishamed. So going to the next one right here. So a lot of things going on here, but if you just break it down, you see a comet's hey, and you see a hey prefix, right? And a heric yod infix. So you see 3 parts, and basically you see the ba dal as the 3-letter root. So comet's hey, what does that usually mean? That usually means 3fs. The hiv dila, that sounds like hifil. And you do that because it is a perfect with a hey prefix. No imperfect is going to have a hey prefix. Now, it also can't be a hifil, or I mean, it can't be a nifal, because a nifal is not going to have the heric yod in it. So hifil by multiple tests, and then it's a vukatal because of the vav on there. We're dealing with the 3fs just like before, and oops, and then we have from vadal. Okay, and now we have some crazy stuff going on here too. So the thing to recognize is at the very end you have a T, so that's a 1CS. And then notice that you have a vav, so it's going to be the vukatal. And then you still have 5 letters. And so the 2-letter prefix, you should be able to recognize halak in the middle there too. So hit, that sounds like what it is. A hit, pael, iterative action, so he continued walking. It is vukatal and 1CS from halak. All right, very good. 2 left. Again, you kind of have to know bow because that the jelly donuts are the primary suspect for when it shows up with 2 letters. Now, 1 yod verbs or 1 noon verbs can also show up with 2 letters. So you know something's missing. So do you know a yava? No, not really. Do you know a hava? Not really. Do you know a bow or a bee? Yes, you know a bow. So that's what's going on here. And this is either going to be a call perfect 3ms from bow, or it's a call active participle masculine singular from bow. Whoops. Okay, last but not least, it's things to recognize here. So again, the thing that should stand out is the O class as the first letter. It's either going to be a participle, or it's going to be a 1 yod hifil verb. Those are the 2 options whenever you see a yod. Now, with the vi at the beginning, that can't be a participle. So you are dealing with a easy peasy hifil vayiktol 3ms from yashav. And the yod in the hifil changes to a holem vav. So that is what's going on there. All right, I think that's everything. Excellent. Well, we covered some good, there's a full view of everything. Covered some excellent material so far, and we'll see you, Lord willing, in class for some more of Jonah 2 and going through some, and by the way, as you're translating Jonah 2, it is probably the hardest part of Jonah. So be either encouraged or not super discouraged by the fact that you're having a hard time. Jonah 2 is very difficult. All right, we'll see you on Tuesday, Lord willing.